A US president has kidnapped a sitting president of another sovereign state and seized 5 oil tankers carrying oil from that state. Now, that's not a sentence I thought I'd be saying a few weeks ago, but it is the new political reality. So I thought I'd spend a bit of time summarising exactly what happened and why, and more importantly, what the implications are for international relations and diplomacy, trade, and policy in general for the world and the UK. So let's start with what happened. So in the early hours of the 3rd of January, over 100 US warplanes bombed strategic sites in and around Caracas, quickly followed by a raid by US Special Forces, where they managed to extract, I think is a word I'll use from now on, Nicolas Maduro and his wife, and take them back to the US, where they have appeared in court on various charges, including narco-terrorism, to which he has pleaded not guilty and stated he is a prisoner of war. At the time, I did a quick video where I said the 2 big implications for me was that this gave a free pass to other nations with a large army to do something similar, and worried that the country of Venezuela would turn into a failed state. Just have a look at what's happened to the likes of Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, following military intervention by Western states, particularly the US. However, things seem to have calmed down a little bit, and so now's a chance to look a little more calmly at what all of this means. So, first thing to say is that Trump has been very clever. I don't mean smart, or right, or legal, or moral, but clever. He's said all along he doesn't want to get involved in forever wars. He's not interested in armed conflict overseas. And so what he's done is a surgical strike with overwhelming force and extracted the sitting president. He's clearly doesn't care that it's illegal, and it is. There are only 3 reasons broadly why you can physically attack another nation. Number 1, in self-defense. Number 2, with the UN sanction mandate. Number 3 is if you're invited to do so. Say that state is facing a rebellion or being attacked itself by a third party. None of those apply in this case, and so Trump has simply acted in what he believes to be America's best interest. But why is this clever? Well, by not going for regime change, he's essentially left everything else in place. He's avoided, for now at least, creating a failed state. He's not got in with any moral mission to free the people, to protect them from the ravages of a kleptocratic regime. He simply said, I have the power to do this, I've done it, do what you're told, or I'll do it again. It's essentially what it comes down to. And that message is not just for Venezuela, it's essentially for all of the Americas. He has made lots of noises since about taking Greenland by hook or by crook, which we'll come on to in a minute, and left not so vague threats that Colombia's next. And by demonstrating that A, he can do it, and B, he's willing to do it, he may be able to get his way without doing any other military action. Because to avoid it, people will essentially do what he wants, because the message is clear. I'm not going to invade, I'm not going to come after your country, I'm going to come after you. So as I said, that's clever. And he's avoided getting embroiled in forever wars and creating failed states. Doesn't mean to say that Venezuela won't become one. It's got an awful economic situation. It is suffering under a regime that is both economically inept and very, very authoritarian. Thousands have died, been tortured, imprisoned, and a quarter of the population has left the country. And it's already gone through one very bad famine, as it can no longer produce enough food to support its population. So, why did Trump do this? Well, number one, Trump's never been a fan of international order, of playing by people's rules, and believes that he has, for a better phrase, an emperor's power as president. His entire track record, both his first office and his second office, follow that line. and he sees no reason why he can't do what he thinks is the best thing. He also doesn't believe in multinationalism. He believes in bilateral relations. He wants to have individual relationships with people, not multilateral ones. That's why he's so dismissive of the UN, NATO. He wants bilateral relationships with everybody. And he wants this world to become a bilateral one, not a multilateral one. And he's not afraid of using US military might to make the point. Because, and he's quite right in this, so what if I broke international law? What you going to do about it? And that is a sad but true commentary. As you'd imagine, there are lots of international leaders who have been condemning this, most notably in South America and in other places. A few have kept quiet or have made muted signals, the UK amongst them. But one thing that this shows is that the international order that people thought was in place never was. The international order, the international laws, yes, they were there. Yes, people used them. Yes, they were acted upon sometimes. But they were there as a common illusion. It's an illusion that many people still hang on to. But Trump's actions and the immediate consequences show that they're not as strong as people think they are, and this has just made them weaker. Is that a nice thing? Is it a good thing? No. It makes the world a much more dangerous place, and I wish it wasn't so. But you have to deal with the world as you find it, not as you wish it to be. If we look at the tankers that he seized, in fact he seized them before he did the attack on the 3rd, this is the famous Shadow Fleet. If you don't know what that is, these are tankers that hide their ownership, are carrying false flags, dodgy insurance, and essentially exist to get round various sanctions, in this case not only Venezuela but also Russia, for Ukraine war, Iran, all use a Shadow Fleet. And the size of the Shadow Fleet's been estimated at almost 1,000 tankers, some put it even more. So that's tankers around the world that aren't operating under the normal international rules. And technically, anyone could seize one if they wanted to, if they had the military power, but everyone chooses not to because they are useful to everybody in some way, shape or form. And Trump has gone, nope, we want these tankers, we want their oil. And even though one of them was transferred to a Russian flag and Russia sent military assets to escort it, the US went, we don't care, it's ours. And so that they have taken 5 tankers and are willing to take more. And that means that it's open season on the Shadow Fleet, and that will have huge long-term consequences on international trade. If none of these tankers are safe, you will have captains who are unwilling to put to sea. Insurers won't insure them, and if you don't have insurance, you can't do things like traverse the Panama or the Suez Canal. You cannot dock in most international ports. In fact, you can't even enter state waters near a state. You can only stay at the high seas. And that means that these fleets, these tankers, will have to be insured by states directly, self-insured almost. And the first time there's a claim and that claim is not paid for because it's too expensive, then the entire fleet will effectively stay in port. And it will do more to strengthen the existing sanctions than anything else that multinational talking around the table has done for years. Speaking of oil, interestingly, Trump apparently informed the US oil giants that he was doing this before the attack took place, and indeed before he told Congress, which is very interesting. There is already a US company working in Venezuela, Chevron, as well as a couple of smaller European outfits, and they're churning out something like 1 million barrels a day. Now, Trump held a meeting with the US oil companies this week in Washington, where he outlined his plans for the Venezuelan oil, the role of the US, and wanted them to commit to investing in Venezuela to help extract it. To which he got what's best described as a lukewarm response. You see, Trump is, whatever else he's got going for him, he's not big on detail. And detail really does matter. particularly on something like oil extraction. And there's several reasons why the oil giants might not be overly keen on Trump's plan. And one of them is that the Venezuelan oil reserves, as big as they are, and they are very big, they are extremely difficult to get at. Venezuela has some of the highest costs for oil production in the world. And I'll come on to the technical reasons for that in a second. But if you have got limited resources, limited attention span, are you going to put investment into the most difficult oil field in the world to work in, or one that's a bit easier? Well, I know where I put my money. So why is it so difficult to extract oil from Venezuela? Well, in the description below there's a link to a video by Peter Zion, who I follow, who has dumbed down the technical elements to explain why it's so difficult and why it's so costly. But essentially, you have to go through multiple processes that most oil fields don't have to go through just to be able to move the stuff around. And that means the cost is much, much higher, and explains why Venezuela's oil production has fallen from a pre-Chavez, pre-Maduro high of I think 3 to 4 million barrels a day to just under 1 million now, because they don't have the wherewithal to maintain the equipment needed to exploit all the fields. So number one, it's very expensive, so that's one reason why they wouldn't do it. Number two, return on investment for an oil field is measured not in months or years but decades. And if that's the case, you need a stable operating environment to do it. And the one thing that you can say about Venezuela is it is not stable. Even if Trump is willing to guarantee the stability of the country with the use of military forces, he's only going to be here for less than 3 years. So, and you don't know who the next president will be or what he or she will think. If it's J.D. Vance or some other Republican MAGA person, then maybe they will. But if it's a Democrat, unlikely. And so if you can't guarantee that stability, it's a very unattractive investment. The next reason is that Venezuela has a history of forcibly nationalizing oil assets. It's done it twice. And again, if you don't have a president on side who is willing to do a Maduro, as I'm sure it will come to be known, on whoever's in power, then what's to stop whoever's in power from nationalising all those assets you've invested in? Which brings us on to the fourth reason, is because of the technical difficulty and because things have been left to rot and ruin for so long, to be able to get the Venezuelan oil industry back up to where it was, it's going to cost between $100 and $200 billion. And who wants to risk that much money when there are much better returns elsewhere? So although Trump is keen to exploit the considerable natural resources in Venezuela, I think the reality is that he's going to get a much lower output, a much lower return for his trouble than he thinks he is. One quick thing, Harley here, say hello Harley, has a quick request. Would you mind hitting the like button and maybe subscribing? Most people who watch these videos don't, and it really, really helps. Okay, that's it, back to the video. And if we are moving to a world where power becomes ever more important, well, that's going to mean those who have power, military power, economic power, are going to see their stars rise, and those that don't are going to see it fall. It's a world where energy becomes more important and everything else be damned. And indeed, in Venezuela, it is a case of everyone else be damned. The regime that has been left there is reportedly cracking down very hard on any kind of dissent. Of course, their big worry is that this is part of a regime change, and they don't want to give the population at large an opportunity or an incentive to try and rise up. So both military and civil armed groups are patrolling the streets, making it very clear, cracking heads, that everyone is to mind their P's and Q's and do as they're told. So Trump's actions have actually led to a more repressive outcome for the Venezuelans, and he doesn't seem to care. Like I said, what he did was clever, but not necessarily right, and certainly not legal or moral. As for the UK, well, we're doing everything that we can as a government not to upset Trump, who, as we know, is capricious, and undo what little ground we've made in terms of having a better relationship than, say, the EU and other nations in terms of trade, etc., and are desperate to make sure that Trump signs on to any peace deal in terms of providing some sort of backstop of force to enforce it. Otherwise, it really won't be worth the paper it's written on. And so they're not saying that this is illegal. They're not doing anything to call out Trump, even though everyone knows it is. And they're in a bit of a tricky place, particularly as those on the left are being able to make hay about this, while the government essentially stays silent. So what does this mean for our foreign policy? Well, under Labour, not very much. We have a lawyer, a human rights lawyer at that, as Prime Minister, and he is going to cling on to the old norms, the international law, the civilized way of doing things long after it's dead. It isn't yet, but it's going that way. And we will not react to the new realpolitik until whoever the next government is, sadly. I don't say this to relish, I don't like it, but it is what it is. When that happens, you will find that alignments become necessary. And for Britain, that leaves us with an interesting picture. Do we align with the United States, where militarily they are clearly the biggest, baddest boy in town, or do we ally with Europe? And this becomes very important, possibly very quickly, when you think of Greenland. Now, Trump has made no secret of the fact that he wants Greenland for the United States. He tried to buy it in his first term, and he said that the US needs it. And it's probably worth having a quick history lesson insofar as there is a treaty signed in 1951 between Denmark and the US, which essentially says the US can do what the hell it likes in Greenland militarily. It can put bases there, it can put people there, it can put missiles there, it can have complete control over the defense of Greenland. That's still in place, and the fact that the US doesn't have a bigger military presence on Greenland is because to date it hasn't wanted one. And President Trump this week has said that, well, if you really want to protect a place, you need to own it, not lease it. Well, that in itself is very revealing, because the argument is that they need to control Greenland to protect the US. Well, to protect Greenland, the only reason you'd want to do that is because you want what's there. And so this is not about defense per se, although that is important. It's about access to the rare earth minerals and other resources, including potentially oil, that is becoming easier to get at as global warming proceeds. So again, it's very mercantile, not military, really, that he's after. So for NATO, this obviously is a massive threat. Should Trump decide that he gets impatient with diplomatic efforts to get hold of Greenland, or indeed just buy it outright, and decides to annex it, then I don't see a future for NATO, at least not one with America in it. So of course, the likes of Russia and China are gleefully clapping and cheering the US on in the hope that they do it and that NATO falls, which again is not something I would want to see. Whether or not Trump pulls back, whether or not he's just making a lot of noise in the hope that he can get a deal and not have to use military force, remains to be seen. There are some that say Trump plays 4D chess, and others that he's a moron. The truth is somewhere in between. And I just hope that wiser heads prevail, although history tells us that Trump doesn't listen to anyone else unless they agree with him. So for Britain, which side do we take? And it's not a choice that any Prime Minister, whether it be Keir Starmer or whoever follows him, is going to enjoy having to make. I just hope that whoever it is doesn't have to make it. Ta-da.